Alright, and welcome back to the house that we've been working on. Um, Now in this lesson we're going to go a little bit more into materials, and we're going to modify our house just a little bit. So, we've made the table and the chairs like a wood color, but they're not necessarily a wood texture. So, I'm going to go up to Window, to Rendering Editors, and down to Hypershade. That will open up the Hypershade window. On the Materials tab in the Hypershade, you'll see all the materials that you have in your scene. So I'm going to click on Table, because I know that's what my table is made out of, and I know I want that to be wood. So that will open up the attribute editor for that material, and where it says color, and we've been changing the color of the material, if you go over to the right hand side, there's this little checkered box. Click on that, and this is for adding different textures to your materials. Now you want to make sure normal is selected so that it will apply it to the material normally. And I've created a Photoshop file with a wood texture. Now you can grab one off the internet or make one in Photoshop, but since I have a PSD file, I'm going to click PSD. Now if you save to JPEG or whatever, you're going to click File, but it's the same box either way. So I'm going to click PSD, and you see that my material turned black in the Hypershade. Well, I can close the Hypershade now. And since my material is still selected, you'll see where it says Image Name over here in the Attribute Editor. So I want to click this folder, navigate to wherever I put my wood grain or whatever texture it was, click Open, and you'll see it applies it to my materials. Well, you may not see it applied to the materials. You may see this. If you hit 5 on the keyboard, that's a preview shading. If you hit 4, you go into wireframe mode. 5 is the preview shading. 6 is previewing with textures. So go ahead and hit 6 on your keyboard. Just for reference, while we're on keyboard shortcuts, if you hit 7, it's a preview with your lighting as well. But for now, let's leave it on 6. And with these, in the attribute editor, you'll see the wood grain, you see the image name. If you click this button, it will go kind of up one level to your material. If you click the button right above it, you'll go down one level, down to so you can see what image or what material. So that's what these two buttons do. They navigate up and down through your sort of material type hierarchy. Now that we have that done, let's go ahead and we'll just get a render of that, and we'll have a look. Now you can see it reflects off the table as if the table were highly glossed and finished, and I think that spotlight may have a little too hard of an edge. So let's close this. We'll select our spot. I also think the spotlight isn't quite shining centered over the table. If you have a look, it's actually not so much on this side, and it's running off the other side. So if you hit T on your keyboard, that will give you a little bit of a manipulator, similar to the move tool, only now you can move the light, and you can also move where it's pointing more precisely. So I'm going to hit spacebar and jump over to my top view and move my light back over the table, and then I'm going to move where it's pointing to the center of the table. Okay, so it's kind of hard to adjust in the top view, but if you're careful, not a big issue. Go ahead and move that down. Okay, so that should be a little bit more centered if we do a render. Awesome. Now, make sure you open up your attribute editor. You can either hit Control A or push this first button. with your light selected, you can go up here, and there's all kinds of different sort of adjustments. The penumbra angle, if you watch in the light shape, if you put the penumbra down, it will sort of more gradually fade off. If you put the penumbra up, it will fade off, but if you get really close to zero, it makes it very hard-edged. And I don't really want a hard edge, I'd rather have kind of a soft edge, so I'm going to go ahead and hit a render after I've put the penumbra angle up. And you can see it's a much softer, much wider, more gradual of a fall off. I also like this better just because then you can see the shadows that the chairs cast, the shadow from the table. So play with the light settings and see, what the differences are. Be careful adjusting ray trace shadow attributes, because if you put these up too high, then you start getting really, really detailed, very, very accurate shadows, but your computer takes forever to do it. So now that I have that done, I kind of want to put in a window. That ought to make things interesting. So I'm going to select my wall, right click, go to face mode, select the face. Now it's very important that you jump into your front view, or whichever orthographic view is squarely facing the wall, because we're going to use the Cut Faces tool. That's another one up on the Polygon Shelf tab up on this bar. You click on it and it changes your cursor to this triangle thing. Now the reason I say jump into the side is you can make some very strangely angled cuts, and for a window, if you hold shift, it will constrain it to 45-degree angles. So since I have that face selected, I cut and it divides that face in two. Now I can cut again, or what I prefer to do is grab my selection tool and select just this one face, so that I can't cut any other faces but this one. Then click my Cut Faces tool and cut again. This is going to be a rather wide window. Again, holding shift so I get straight up and down, cut it, grab my selection tool, select just this center one. This one's important, otherwise if you have these two faces selected, you wind up cutting all the way across and adding more geometry than you really need. So select just this face, grab your Cut Faces tool, cut, again, grab the selection tool, grab your Cut Faces tool, and hold shift to make a straight cut, and cut. Now you can jump back into your perspective view, hit Q to get your selection tool and select this one, and I want to go to my rendering tab. I want, let's grab this first one. Okay, so I've assigned a new material to just this pane right here, and I want it to be almost completely transparent, because that's what windows are, and I don't want it to be a real dark gray. So just to test this out, I'm going outside the house, and you can see that I can see in. Awesome. So theoretically, that will also let light in if I put a light in outside. Let's just do a quick preview rendering. Okay, so you just see a square in the edge of the house. Typically, I will put, I'll model some extra geometry around there for a window frame, and I may yet do that later. But for now, I'm going to grab another spotlight. Okay, put on my move tool by hitting W. I'm going to move it outside the house this time. And this is another very important, or a time where it's very easy to use this manipulator tool by hitting T, so you can see where it's pointing, because I want it to shine in through the window. Okay, so I want to make sure that that black line kind of comes in through the window and see what it's shining on. Oops, I accidentally deselected my light, so let's go back, select it, and it's going to shine in through the window, and it's going to shine kind of on the table. Awesome. So all that's left is I want it to be kind of a softer gray, and I want way soft light, and I want to turn on ray trace shadows. Bam! Now it's should almost be like moonlight. So once it renders, I would even drop the intensity down a little bit more, but you can see that it shines in through the window and reflects on the floor, and you can see that we still have our light from above casting shadows from the table. So that's a little bit on modifying our little house and adding more lights to it. So we'll see you in the next lesson.